Today, we're going to talk about something that you need to empower yourself with, which is the skills of negotiations, the ability to make deals and to come to conclusions through compromise, right? And the reason I want to share this with you is because in all of life, you are going to have to negotiate your way through life. You're going to have to make deals. You're going to have to create win-win scenarios. And if you want something, whether it's a relationship that you want, or maybe you want to buy into a business, maybe you and your friend are going to start a business together and you're going to start negotiating a partnership. Maybe you're going to acquire someone else's business instead of buying into it. You're actually just going to buy someone else's business. What are the skills to negotiating, making deals, and creating a win-win scenario? I want to use my life examples and share them with you and all the different ways that I've been able to negotiate through deals, relationships, business partnerships, friendships, acquiring companies, selling my businesses. At 48 years old, I've practically done it all. And I've done much of it the wrong way. And through doing it the wrong way, I've had the opportunity to course correct as I went along in my entrepreneurial career. So let's jump into it. Like I thought to myself, I'm like, all right, what could these guys use right now? I'm like, man, what if you can make deals and negotiate like you were Warren Buffett? Now, I don't even know if Warren Buffett did the negotiating or his business partner, Charles Munger, did, right? Good old Charlie Munger. But these guys are like dinosaurs, man. What are they, in their late 80s, 90s? And, you know, they've done well in life. They've negotiated, bought businesses, sold businesses, merged businesses, created partnerships. And all of it is a byproduct of the tools that I'm going to give you here. So let's just dive right into it, right? So the thing number one you want to understand about any negotiation is this. When you are negotiating, you're looking to create a win-win scenario. If it's anything other than a win-win scenario, the deal's going to fall through. It's not going to work out. I don't care if you're trying to get a date. I don't care if you're trying to propose. I don't care if you're trying to buy a house or if you're trying to buy a business or if you're trying to sell something. If you can't make it a win-win, both parties have to walk away from the scenario thinking, you know what? I won. This is good. I feel good. If they felt like I got slighted, I got gypped, I got sandbagged, or maybe just, I just feel like this person got more and I got less, what you're going to do immediately is start building resentment in that relationship, right? And you might be like, well, what does it matter if I'm selling my business to someone else? No, probably doesn't matter in that scenario much. Although maybe that person who bought your business and feels like they got, they paid too much, or maybe they felt like they got sandbagged in some way, they're probably going to ruin your reputation, right? But outside of that scenario, it probably doesn't much matter. But in every other scenario, if you have resentment in a business partnership, or if you buy equity in a business, or you start a business partnership with a friend, and one side feels like, hey, we're not going to do 50-50, you talk them into like 70-30, which I have 70-30 deals where I get 70% and they get 30%, but I still make it a win-win because I go, look, I'm getting 70% because I've got a big team that's going to orchestrate the whole thing. I'm getting 70% because I've got a huge following and audience that's going to buy. I'm getting 70% because I'm going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting up front. You're getting 30% because you're going to do the work behind the scenes for the time being. And so that's not as valuable as the things I'm bringing, right? So it's not to say that every win-win scenario has to be equal and 50-50, but the person on the other side, even if they're getting 1%, have to feel like they won. So always negotiate a win-win scenario. And I'm going to tell you how you do that. Thing one is you ask a lot of questions, right? I wrote down some notes for myself. You ask a lot of questions. Because you might ask questions, and in the process of asking questions, you will learn from that other person by listening that one of their greatest needs are they need more capital, or they don't want to be alone, or they don't know what to do next. So they're willing to give off some equity. They're willing to sell some percentages. They're willing to give you equity because you're bringing an audience, or you're bringing operations, or you're bringing leadership, or you're bringing something else to the table, right? So sometimes when the other party has pain or frustration or something that's keeping them awake at night, if you ask enough questions, you will figure out what those things are. And then you begin to go, aha, if I can solve those things for you through our partnership, relationship, negotiation, then can I have this much of the business, right? So you'd be wrong to believe that all negotiations has to do with dollars and cents. Sometimes it's about frustration. Sometimes it's about they want more freedom. Sometimes it's they don't want to take any more risk in the growth of this organization or whatever. So remember, ask a lot of questions, figure out what a win looks like for them, and then figure out how you can structure a win during this negotiation for you and them, right? Thing number 2 you're going to do is if you're negotiating a business deal, a purchase of a product, a company, an apartment, a house, a car, whatever, come up with the price first. Negotiate on the price first. I always like to negotiate on the price first, and then I go to the next step, which is negotiating the terms. For example, let's say I'm going to buy into your business. Let's say you've got a business, you create widgets, and you're like, man, I would love to have Bedros as a business partner because he's got an audience. He can talk about it on the show. He can help me with the leadership team that he brings, blah, 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 all these things, right? Great. So I want Bedros to buy into my business, but my business is doing whatever. Let's say it's doing $2-3 million a year right now, and it's got 35% profit margins, so pretty healthy margins in terms of profit. So you're like, man, Bedros needs to financially buy in, right? Well, that's all great. And so let's say we negotiate on the price that I buy in for. Let's say I'm like, hey, man, we agree that I'm going to buy in for, I don't know, $800,000, right? $800,000 for X percentage, 20%, 30%, whatever it is. Well, guess what happens next? We negotiated on the price. Now I'm going to come back around. Once I'm happy with the price I'm going to pay and you're happy with the price you're going to get, I'm going to come back around and negotiate terms with you. I'm going to, listen, man, I'm going to give you $100,000 now, and then I'm going to give you $100,000 a month for the next 7 months, and that's the $800,000, right? That's one of the terms. And then I'm going to say, by the way, your business is doing whatever, $3 million a year right now. If I can double that, when we double that to $6 million a year, I want to start drawing $15,000 a month in salary from the company. So I can set up a tripwire, right? So the terms you can set up where once I've come up with a price, now the terms are I'm going to pay over this much amount of time. The terms could be once the company makes this much dollars, based on the efforts that I brought in, then I want to start getting cash flow in addition to the equity percentage that I own. So always remember, negotiate price first, terms second, right? The next thing, understand what are priorities to you. Understand what the priorities are for you and what the negotiables are. Because some things you're like, hey, for example, let's say it's a priority for me to not pay more than $1 million for coming in to business with you. Like that's a non-negotiable for me, right? But what is negotiable is I might be willing to pay $800,000 in full, right? But I won't pay more than $1 million. That's a priority. But I am willing to pay $800,000 in full, $900,000 in full. So you're going to come to the table with priorities. Like these are the priorities. These are the things that mean something to me. For example, a priority might mean when I get the company to double the revenue, I want $15,000 a month in revenue to come to me in terms of payroll or independent contractor distribution or whatever, right? Like maybe that's a priority because I want all the businesses that I've ever taken equity in to give me cash flow. That's a priority to me, the way I do business. However, what is negotiable is maybe it's not going to be $15,000. Maybe we're going to negotiate to $10,000, $9,000, whatever, right? So when you come to the table with your priorities and you come to the table with what you're willing to negotiate, there's going to be room for compromise. But if you don't show up with what your own priorities are in your head and what you're willing to negotiate, then you won't have any room for compromise. And with that compromise, you'll never be able to create a win-win scenario. So the next thing I want to let you know is you got to show up with options. Meaning you must have the options to walk away from the business. You must have the options to say no, knowing that there's a better business that you could buy or that there's a better way you can invest your money. Because if you feel this is the only one, like people do this with the home all the time. They fall in love with the home and then all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to figure out how to pay for it no matter what and put themselves in a ridiculous debt. They left the farm in terms of making deals and negotiating and instead found themselves in a position where they fell in love with the house. They already see themselves living in it. They see the lifestyle, and they left themselves no option but to find a way to pay for it. So now the seller has you over a barrel, if you will, right? And that is the last thing I want. So I want to have options. I want to say, hey, look, if this house doesn't work out based on these terms, this price, and these priorities and negotiables, I have 4 other options in this town, all right? So I have the ability to say no to the deal, walk away, emotionally detach, and go and check out the other deal. And so that's the other piece that I want to bring into this, which is to leave your emotions at the door. You cannot fall in love with the business. You cannot fall in love with the brand. You cannot fall in love with the car. You cannot fall in love with the house pre-sale. If you do, you are going to be jaded, right? This actually happens in relationships as well. People who are like, in that first 6 months to 12 months of any relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship, man, it's like, man, she can't do anything wrong. I love everything about her. She's smoking hot. I love the way she snaps her bubble gum. I love the way she walks. I love the little crust that she has in her eye when she wakes up. Everything that you found attractive in like 12 to 18 months, you're going to find unattractive. But because you're in that emotional state, the honeymoon period of that relationship, all these things that you found attractive about her, so then you jumped the gun and got married to her, now you're going to begin to hate her and resent her for all those little traits that you found so cute. You know what I'm saying? And so with that said, you got to leave your feelings and emotions aside, not get attached to anything until you're on the other side of that sale. And then finally, if you want to be able to negotiate and you want to create a win for yourself and you want to create a win for them, you have to be able to have trust, likability, and rapport, right? So that starts even before the negotiation starts. Like if I'm going to start negotiating on buying a company, like I say, I want to buy a company, I want to start getting to know the owners, the principals, the founders. I want to maybe just be friends with them. Send them something in the mail. Hey, here's some steaks. Here's some bottles of wine. Hey, I'm going to be in town. Let me take you out to a restaurant. Because if I can build a relationship and a rapport with these people, if I can be liked and trusted by them, then during the negotiation process that might be 6 months or 12 months down the road, I now have more leverage because their wall is down, right? And by the way, I also want to know who I'm getting into a relationship with. And so I want that likability and trust the other way as well. I want to feel like I like them, trust them, and have rapport with them if I'm going to go into business with them, right? Because I've gone into business with people strictly for the money, only to later, years later, resent being in business with that person and feeling like, man, this was a really bad deal. Even though I was making good money, I was anxious, I was stressed, I was always overwhelmed, I was always putting out fires, and I realized this was a bad deal. I shouldn't have made this deal. I shouldn't have negotiated this deal. So I'm here to tell you the art of negotiating and making deals are important. And when you follow these principles that I shared with you, you will walk out of there with a win-win for all. And even more, you can use these skills not in just business, but when you are in a relationship, friendship, business partnerships, buying a house, getting married, hell, going on vacation. Like you might need to negotiate and make deals on how long the vacation is, where you're going, how long you're going to stay, what sites you're going to see, because you might be the type of person who just wants to chill on the sand for 10 days, and your honey might be the type of person that wants to go see every fucking museum out there, in which case you find yourself in a position where you got to compromise, negotiate, and make deals, right? Because if you just get dragged along to every museum, you're soon going to hate that vacation, and you're going to pass that hate along to your honey. But if you're willing to use these skills of negotiation and deal making, you'll be able to get the best of both worlds.